I-24 News, as we said on the September 28, 2016, marking, as the entire world will mark, the passing of Shimon Peres, former president, former prime minister, one of the sons and fathers, founding fathers of the country of Israel, and so many projects, endeavors behind it. Pardon me, this morning, the world is grieving his passing, and dignitaries are already announcing who will be arriving to that funeral to be held on Friday morning in Jerusalem. Let's go straight to Jonathan Sacerdoti, I-24 News, I-24 News European correspondent, joining us from London this morning. And Jonathan, I don't want to say surprising, but we've been discussing now for the past 2 hours what a unifying man, Shimon Peres, a unifying leader he was towards the end of his career. But Prince Charles arriving to this funeral, what is so remarkable about this? You can explain that best.
Well, the royal family has never made a formal state visit to Israel. In 1994, Prince Philip went to Yad Vashem and planted a tree in memory of his mother. And in 1995, Prince Charles attended the funeral of Yitzhak Rabin. This won't be a state visit either, an official British state visit. So it's in line with those former visits of British royals. But it is very important to show that the British royal family is wanting to be involved in this. And so far, those reports there, which I haven't yet had confirmed by Clarence House personally, have said that Prince Charles will be attending the funeral. It seems quite believable. And let's not forget that in 2008, Shimon Peres was awarded an honorary knighthood by Her Majesty the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, at Buckingham Palace, and that footage is still fresh in people's minds.
Awarded that, and as we said, Jonathan, people arriving here in hopes of that legacy, of that memory, unifying people. That's remarkable about Prince Charles. When it comes to the political upper echelon in Britain and around Europe, who do you know of? Who are we to expect?
Well, again, it's not certain. The Foreign Office hasn't yet responded exactly what their reaction will be, even a little slow off the mark in terms of even giving a quote. But we've heard, of course, from Tony Blair, who had a great closeness with Shimon Peres and with Israel and the Middle East region in general, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, who said that Shimon Peres was a political giant, a statesman who will rank as one of the foremost of this era or any era, and someone I loved deeply. So that sort of emotional response from Tony Blair is really talking to exactly the kind of man that Shimon Peres was in the hearts of those people who were closely involved from here in the UK and Europe in the Middle East and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and those peace talks. Tony Blair, a man who's been known to have deep involvement, saying there that he loved Shimon Peres deeply. That seems to be the sort of feeling that's echoing around Europe. Also, we've heard from Federica Mogherini in the European Union saying that she was heartbroken at the death of President Peres, a man of peace, an immense source of inspiration, and the only way to honor his memory, she says, of course, is heading towards a two-state solution. So those people there trying to display their emotion, but also trying to say that this should be a moment for Israel and the region to be able to see if they can push towards Peres's dream of a two-state solution and lasting peace.
And lasting peace. Jonathan Sacerdoti, one last question to you. I was opening, the front pages before we got in the studios. The news came out at 5 o'clock in the morning, Middle Eastern time. The New York Times has Shimon Peres on his front page. I'm assuming, are the British newspapers covering this, or have you had a chance to take a look at the Independent, the Guardian? Europe, not the biggest fan of the country of Israel over the course of the last several years. That's a mild understatement. But is this covered in the British media?
Well, this news, of course, has come too late for the first editions or any editions of the British newspapers. But these days, with online and TV rolling news, this has, of course, been covered quite extensively here. Shimon Peres is one of those figures that whatever people's personal or political opinions on Israel are or have been, he's almost stood for all those views himself, from the right to the left, from being hawkish to being a dove and symbolic of wanting to push for peace. So it's clear that more or less anyone can latch on to Shimon Peres's message. And in his later years, of course, he was seen as a loving father figure to the state of Israel, somebody that people could use to talk about peace in almost any capacity. So he is somebody who is popular within the UK, who could still sell out big fundraising dinners in the UK for Zionist charities, for example, within the last few years, somebody with whom the British population do have some interest.
No, and Jonathan Sacerdoti joining us from London this morning. Very valid point. That's actually a good, and thank you for joining us from London. I'm assuming we will definitely be talking to you throughout the day. When it comes to is this the last man that the world loved?